Welcome everyone to the Tuesday conversation in Town Hall with Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox, hosted by the Utah League of Cities and Towns and the Utah Association of Counties. I'm Cameron Dale, the director of the Utah League, and Brandy, it's nice to join you once again virtually for another town hall. So Brandy Grace from the Association of Counties.
Thanks, Cam.
We are thrilled today to be joined by Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox as part of our weekly tradition and to get an update on what is happening at a state level and what you need to know around the response to COVID-19. We also are thrilled today to be joined by Commissioner of Public Safety Jess Anderson, who's been intimately involved in the efforts. Commissioner Anderson was having some technical difficulties, so we will have him join us once he's able to resume. But Lieutenant Governor Cox, thank you very much for joining us by phone today.
Well, thank you, Brandy and Cam. It is always good to be back with you. I really appreciate that we have this opportunity every week. Hopefully it's helpful to your members. It certainly is to us. So thank you.
Terrific. Well, Lieutenant Governor, it is traditionally this week in May would be prime NBA playoff season. And of course, there is no NBA right now. And fun fact, 23 years ago today was when the Jazz beat the Lakers 4-1 and Kobe had all of his air balls. May he rest in peace. But I assume you remember that game like it was yesterday as well.
It was a night I'll never forget, and I was giddy, I think is the appropriate term. So, and very sad that we're not celebrating something similar that this time of year, but grateful for everybody who's working really hard on this issue, so we can get back to celebrating those things.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, Lieutenant Governor, while we wait for Commissioner Anderson, let's start with you. Let's just keep it broad. What do we need to know coming into this week? And give us an update from the state task force and from the commission.
Sure. Well, thank you. You'll remember last week we had, I think it was last week that we had Angela Dunn on with us. The days and weeks kind of all run together, but we've been tracking very closely this week. Some great news as our testing continues to expand. We're seeing a plateau in case counts, and in fact, the last couple of days we've had a reduction, which is really good news. That as we prepare to move from orange to yellow, something that we're all excited to see. It's especially good news that now that we've gone from red to orange, we've been there for a little over a week now. I guess moving on a week and a half, and so we would expect to see new cases from those changes start to show up in the data. Of course, we're watching hospitalizations very, very closely, but so far things are looking very good, and we're excited with the direction we're headed. We're going to have Jess Anderson talk a little bit more about some of the unified command work and the PPE pushbacks for businesses. So we'll get him on there. Just another interesting note. Today we were made aware that through the PPP loans that come out of the CARES Act, that Utah actually had the highest number of loans, or the highest amount. I didn't get a chance to look at the document yet, just the headline, of any state in the nation. So per capita, we utilized that resource better than anywhere else, and that's a testament again to our small businesses here in the state. And remember, when I say small business, that was any business with 499 employees or less. So that's 90% of the businesses in Utah that were eligible, and also a testament to our banks and many of our small banks who were actually very instrumental in helping businesses secure those loans. That's really good news for us from an economic standpoint. Again, that will help us to bust out of this sooner than anywhere else. And so there are lots of positives trending in our favor, but we recognize that being the best of a very bad situation still makes it a bad situation, and so we're having conversations with legislative leadership. I know we'll get into some of this. You guys are involved in those conversations. What we're able to do with that CARES Act funding, and how we're able to utilize that to help get our economy back on track and protect our citizens, our businesses, our employees, and of course government resources.
Terrific. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. We had Commissioner Anderson for a moment, but then I think he just cut out again. So let's do this. Let's, Brandy, proceed with the Q&A with the Lieutenant Governor, and then once we get Commissioner Anderson on board, Lieutenant Governor, we'll turn it over to him to give an update and take some questions. Does that work with you?
Yep, that works for me. Lieutenant Governor, the governor's current order for the orange guidelines expires this week. What is the current thinking about what will come next? Will the state direction vary by region? As you know, many of our members have asked about the regional approach to this. And then a follow-up question, I'm just going to address this, that was posted in the chat box, that there's a rumor that there will be no going to green until a vaccine is made. I actually have not heard that rumor, but could you address that also?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So yeah, the governor has always planned and still does plan on a regional approach. Of course, what we would like more than anything is to take the entire state to yellow, and that's certainly something that he would like to do as soon as possible. There are some again in the legislation that was passed during the special session. There are some roadmaps from that, and we're working through that with the different regions. It's important that we have a recommendation from the county commissioners, as well as the local health department, that goes to the state health department, and then that goes to the commission and to the governor. And so the answer is yes. We fully expect that, especially with the numbers that we're seeing, that we will see regions be able to move to yellow fairly quickly, which I think is good news for everyone. And we would encourage you to continue to work with your local health departments. The numbers are important. The hospitalizations, our ability to make sure if there is a surge of new cases that we can handle that. But things are looking very good right now. So we're anxious for that to happen. My understanding is that we have Southern Utah, Southwestern Utah, and Cache County that have been the first to go down that path, and so that is moving forward. As far as the question on moving to green, I don't think that is accurate, that it would take a vaccine for that to be able to happen. I do think that treatments are the medicinal treatments are going to be really important in making that happen as we go back to complete normal. It is going to be, and making sure we can protect the vulnerable. We'll probably talk more about this, but as we look to the Utah Leads Together plan version 3.0 that's being worked on right now, and we can share some of these resources. It really is about protecting the vulnerable, and now that we have testing capacity and understanding better what types of people are impacted, now that we have good data here in the state of Utah, and how we make sure and protect those people. So I do think that we'll be back to green before there's a vaccine, but I also believe that the treatments that we're seeing, and by the way, that are coming fairly quickly. We expect this summer to have some really solid treatments that can help lower the mortality rate, as well as help lower the severity of symptoms and hospitalization. The remdesivir trials are ongoing and happening at the University of Utah. The federal government has procured a large shipment of the product from Gilead, and is sending Utah our portion of that. And so that's just the first of many treatments that are showing some promise that we think will be very helpful and help us get back to get to green even quicker.
Thanks for that, Lieutenant Governor. Cam, I'm seeing that has joined us.
Commissioner Anderson, are you there?
I am.
Yay.
Excellent.
Can you hear me and see me?
Excellent. Yes, we can hear you and see you.
Oh, very good.
With all due respect to the Lieutenant Governor, who we can only hear, we'll take a pause from the Lieutenant Governor and turn it over to Commissioner Jess Anderson, who's the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety and has been heavily involved in this effort over the last couple of months. So, Commissioner Anderson, thank you for joining the town hall with the League of Cities and Towns and Association of Counties. You have local elected officials from around the state, and the time is now yours.
Well, thank you, Cameron, and appreciate Lieutenant Governor also inviting me to come on here and to be with him. All things COVID-19, we could talk for a long time on what this is and what it means to the state, but my position, what I am, is the Commissioner of Public Safety, and been asked to lead out as the Unified Incident Commander over our unified response out of our Emergency Operations Center, the EOC. That's made up of the Department of Public Safety, Department of Health. We have purchasing and procurement. We've got GOMB. We've got several, if not every, executive branch that represents one way or another out of our Emergency Operations Center. And so, by and large, what that is an all hands-on deck effort, and knowing that as we work together to overcome the challenges and the problems, it's one central place, though, to formulate good response, whether that's a policy decision or recommendation or otherwise general information that we need to provide to the state, both Lieutenant Governor and Governor, for those critical decisions that need to be made. And so we've been working with that, and across the spectrum of everything. I can tell you a few things that we've had great success on here lately, and what we're working on, even pushing out to the counties and the cities, is the effort of exactly this push-pack effort, which we have had over 3,000 requests of push go to our local businesses of 50 or less, 50 employees or less. That's been a great effort. Today we pushed out just over 2,000 of those 3,000 requests that will be hitting into the counties today. And then the rest of that will be pushed out on Thursday, an additional remainder of those requests. That's one effort of what we're seeing coming from our opportunity to have all of the PPE coming in from around the world, literally, as we've made a Herculean effort to be able to identify masks, gloves, gowns, face shields, you name it, hand sanitizer, everything that we're trying to push out now to the counties and to the cities, and get that back out into the local hands, as well as our hospitals, and of course making sure those that are on the front lines are taken care of. And so that's one aspect of what we're doing, and I share that with you just because it's one thing that we have worked on today and made great progress in moving forward. There's a lot that we could discuss and continue to go forward, but just know, I think the main message here too is just to let you know is any of those critical decisions that are coming out of Unified Command. I work closely with General Burton, who of course is the acting director there of the Department of Health. He and I are coordinating and correlating every single day on the demands or other requests that are coming up from the counties and the cities, and be able to deal with those the best way possible, and at least to give it proper evaluation as we look at the metrics, measure it by the data, and let the data drive the decisions that we're making based on keeping people safe in a precise manner the best we can without this getting ahead of ourselves. I can tell you that data today looks good, and of course Lieutenant Governor Cox was touching on this, but as we move forward, we're trending in the right direction. And the direction is the fact of keeping people out of our hospitals. We're keeping the capacity at a level that's manageable without overwhelming the hospitals, and we're keeping our people safe in that manner. And so we've seen that great success even since bringing back on elective surgeries and turning things on slowly, turning that dial up. So we're cautiously optimistic, even moving forward still, of what that might look like in the trend lines as we're in our second week of orange, or otherwise the moderate risk. And so some big decisions yet to be had as we move forward, and what yellow looks like, and even moving on to green, as Lieutenant Governor was talking about. So unless there's any questions of me, like I said, we could go on and on for a long time talking things COVID, but just a quick high level.
Thank you, Commissioner. And frankly, we've spent the last 2 months talking about all things COVID. So you're right, we could be here forever. I have a quick follow-up question for you based on the access to PPE. I had a conversation with a mayor in southeastern Utah recently, and he was concerned about the availability of PPE in his small community. They do have a small medical clinic. I was concerned about it for his businesses and others. And we've heard those questions percolate over the last few weeks. So can you just quickly explain, if you are a local government, how you at the state level want them to coordinate with the local health departments to make these asks in order to obtain the PPE?
Yeah, great question. As we get asked this often, and but you hit right on it. So what the process is, the easiest process and the smoothest process, and it's just following that chain. If you are a city and local municipality, we would ask that you go through your county one of two ways. You can go to your county emergency manager through the county level, or otherwise through your district, health district, of which in many cases, we have 13 of those. It takes on many counties, of course. Go through the health district and make that request also. So either way, we have our liaisons who are in touch with both the emergency managers as well as those health district chiefs every single day. And so if there's a request that they cannot fill and they have the first right of refusal there to help you, then that request would come up to the state level, and we would then take that upon over the RSS and see what we can fulfill of that ask. And so certainly we do have some supplies, but one of those things too that we also are having to evaluate depending on how large that request would be. But we're trying to push things out as quick as possible and make sure people have what they feel they need to be comfortable, to make sure business can resume, whether at the city level, the county level, and government business, or otherwise at these economic levels to get a small business turned on here or there.
Terrific. Thank you, Commissioner. Brandy, any questions for the Commissioner or for the Lieutenant Governor?
Don't believe I have any additional for the Commissioner. I appreciate the clarification. We've received numerous questions about PPE and how to coordinate that effort. So thank you for your clarification on that. I think that's very helpful to our county members and to the city members as well. So thank you for that. This question is more for the Lieutenant Governor. Congress is set to deliberate on a potential for stimulus package. We received word today that the Democratic leadership in the House was released today, asking for additional funding for local governments, direct funding for counties of all sizes and cities of all sizes. Can you tell us what your position is on that, what the governor's position is on that, and the state, how you feel about a potential for stimulus package from Congress?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Brandy. So it's been a few weeks since I've had that conversation with the governor, but I do know that the last time we talked with the congressional delegation, that the conversation was that if that went forward, then we would be supportive of that, being able to use revenues or being able to use the funding from the fourth package to help local governments who are seeing those shortfalls. And I know that there are many on this call who are feeling it, or all of us will be feeling it over time. When it comes to the funding that's already out there, we talked a little bit about this last week. Again, we've gotten some information from Treasury recently with the precise payments. We do know that from here on, we'll be working with the legislature on what will be the very best use of our state funds for economic stimulus. As you know, we can't use those funds for lost revenue. But very early indicators make us hopeful that we can work through this on our own. We have requested a massive reimbursement from FEMA north of $100 million for public health costs to date for some of the PPE and other things that Commissioner Anderson was referring to. And a lot of where we land on if and when and how much we have depends on that reimbursement from FEMA. Assuming we're able to get most of that reimbursed, then much of the CARES Act funding will be available to use for stimulus in all of our communities. And again, while that doesn't go directly to local governments, we will be able to use that to help with businesses, and all of that is good news for local governments. So we do want your ideas. I know you guys are plugged in. We know you recognize the need to balance the local options with widespread stimulus. We're really all ears on this and hope to get a new set of tax revenue projections coming up very shortly, and then we'll have a much better sense of where we are. I did talk with Brad Wilson this morning, and he said that they're really looking towards kind of early mid-June for a special session, both a budget session and a policy session. And so people are just kind of trying to get the numbers and refining those numbers, and then we'll figure out how to best use that CARES Act funding that's come to the state.
Perfect. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. As Brandy mentioned, congressional Democratic leadership released the HEROES bill today. Brandy and I will stay on the call after you and the commissioner leave to take some questions about it, with the caveat being that the bill came out at noon our time, and it is over 1,800 pages long. And I have to freely admit, I have not read all 1,800 pages in the last, 4
I'm very
hours
disappointed,
and 25
Cam.
minutes. I knew you would be. Yep, I knew you would be disappointed. We are going through it as fast as we can, along with our partners at the National Association of Counties and the National League of Cities. So we'll do just a really quick high-level briefing after about that bill, but it is really good to hear you say that the state is supportive of additional flexibility in the fourth stimulus and dollars for counties, cities, and towns, because that's one of the lessons we've learned from the CARES Act, is that flexibility is important, and the direct allocation right to cities, towns, and counties are important. So Lieutenant Governor and Commissioner, Lieutenant Governor, you answered a question, and then the Commissioner joined, and I just want to revisit that timing question around what happens after the Governor's statewide order expires, which will be at the end of this week. You talked about the fact that you've heard from different regions in the state that have requested moving to yellow. Those requests come through the local health departments to the state, and then as you look at the data, you make that data-driven decision. What is your decision-making timing for what comes after the current order, whether that's an extension of the current order or a change in color for different parts of the state? Is the timing Thursday? Is the timing tonight? Just so our folks have a better understanding of when to watch for these potential changes when the current order expires.
Jess, I haven't had a conversation with the governor today. I don't know if you have a better feel for that one. He and I have been working on different projects today, and so I do know that it's not today. And I do, again, it's something he's going to want to give us a little time on for sure. I think, again, watching the numbers, there was nothing he'd like more than to move everyone to yellow. But I certainly think that those geographical differences, there's an opportunity there. But Jess, have you heard anything more on timing?
I have, and thank you, Lieutenant Governor. We had the opportunity to meet with Governor just briefly today and discuss perhaps this very question, and knowing that the deadline is coming this Friday, and making a decision to move one way or the other. Governor's weighing all options right now, and part of that really is analyzing the data. So we were able to provide him a lot of data today, to which he's looking to either announce. It'll be before Friday, obviously, not understanding or knowing his schedule exactly on his media availability. But part of this understand and make sure that you understand is the importance of working with our local health district officers and those chiefs. A lot of what we have done over the last several weeks is to make sure that we are all on the same page as we talk from county to county and health district to health district, that we want to make sure that they're comfortable. Each one of those they're in charge, both elected officials as well as the doctors in those particular counties, understand that the decision being made here. And so there's a lot of coordination that's happening, and on that front, to make sure that as we evaluate the data, that everybody sees it the same. And so that's some of the ongoings that are happening behind the scenes to make sure we get to the right decision on whether to, if we need to stay in the orange, if we need to go to yellow, or what that might look like.
And Cam, I'd like to, as we try to figure that out, and again, I know the governor has his thought process and he's working through this, but we'll try to let you guys know, everyone on this call, like we did last time, ahead of time, so that you're able to be prepared with your messaging and the conversations that you need to have. We know how important that is. We appreciate your patience. These are, again, nothing's happening in a vacuum here. There's a lot going on at all times, and for all of us. And so he's very adamant that we get this right, and he's very much encouraging the local input. So please work very closely with your local health departments. That's going to be what drives these decisions.
And if I could add a comment to that as well, Lieutenant Governor, if you remember, I believe it was last week that Dr. Dunn was on the call with us, and there were questions about receiving information from the local health department at the county level and some of the challenges with that. And as I recall, Dr. Dunn explaining that the information is not as clean as one would think. But I think that it's helpful for the members to know that we've continued that conversation beyond the town hall last week, and the local health departments are aware of the concerns from the local elected officials, and they're working on that information so that it can be shared more on a countywide basis.
Yeah, thank you, Brandy, for bringing that up. I was going to mention that too. We had a conversation this morning with Jill Parker, who represents the local public health entities, and that was exactly the purpose of the call as we continue to work on that. And they have been very supportive of breaking that up and doing the best that they can. I do know, some of them have fairly limited resources, especially the smaller public health departments, and they're getting pulled a million different directions, but they also recognize that decisions are better made at the county level than on a regional basis by and large, because there could be very, very different driving factors between counties, and so we want to make sure that we get the best data we can. That again, we get that to the commissioners, who will be collaborating with the executive directors of their local public health departments to help us make those decisions. So thank you.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Brandy, your question.
Yeah. What is the state doing to promote consumer confidence during the stabilization phase? And just a little bit of context. We've heard a little bit of feedback from the businesses now that although they're preparing for opening, and some have, that there is concern about consumer confidence and having people feel like it's okay. And then maybe if we could expand on that a little bit. Another comment in the chat box relative to state efforts on encouraging people to wear masks. And I've been involved in a couple of conversations even over the last couple of days where there's quite a bit of concern over people not taking it seriously, and some businesses requiring people to wear masks, others not. But you could speak to that a little bit. That would be great.
Yeah. Look, this is going to be a tough one, and as much as people like to either praise or blame government for everything that happens, the truth is, if you follow any of the data out there, people were making decisions long before governors told them to shelter in place or stay at home, like we saw in other states. There's some really good data that shows that people are making their own minds up about the virus and the way it impacts them and their families. And of course, a lot of that's driven by the media. And so whether you think it's good reporting or bad reporting, that can certainly have an impact. And if that was true on the front end of this virus, it's certainly going to be true on the back end. And let me be clear, we're not on the back end yet, but we're certainly moving in the right direction. And so while we've seen the majority of Utahns really take the health recommendations seriously, we've also seen the results of employers who have not implemented the safety guidelines. There was a lot of media around a couple businesses in Utah County last week. And so, but at the same time, we've also seen businesses who are taking precautions and are doing it the right way. Our family, we've eaten out a couple times in-house, and it's been great to see businesses that are following the guidelines and the distances between tables and wearing masks and doing what's right. So the governor on Monday morning announced a stay safe, stay open concept, and referenced a potential kind of a good housekeeping seal of approval for businesses who are COVID-19 compliant. This is where, we're going to need some help from the local health departments who could be responsible for determining kind of business education and the implementation of the seal of approval, if that's something they're interested in, that would help. Val Hale announced that GoEd is putting out an RFP for an ad agency to work on consumer confidence. So this is something the state is taking very seriously. The League of Cities and Towns and Salt Lake County, among others, have also put out a survey in the field that will help identify the needs of consumers to feel confident re-engaging in the community and in the economy. And we're hoping to engage local chambers of commerce to assess what can be done there as well. But I really do believe that, again, this is part of capitalism in selling our products is making sure that people feel safe with our products, whatever that is. And one way to do that is advertising that hey, we're open for business and we're protecting you, and this is how we're doing it. When it comes to the broader issue of masks, look, I shared this before. This one is just a little bit mind-boggling. Of course, we don't have an order to make people wear masks, and we understand that masks are not fun to wear. I've as a person who farms and has severe allergies, I've been wearing masks a lot of my life, and it's uncomfortable, and I don't enjoy it. But I'll tell you what, I enjoy it a lot more than staying at home. And so the fact that this has become politicized is really strange. I guess it's the kind of the nature of where we are as a society. But it's a really small and uninvasive way to get our economy going and still protect people in a very big way. And the data that's coming out on this from other countries and even within our country is significant. That this could actually be better than at reducing the spread of the virus than the shelter-in-place orders that we've seen in other states. And so we just have to figure out a way. This was part of our conversation this morning with the task force on how we change the culture. Of course, we've helped to do that by having manufacturers produce masks here that anyone can get. They're free to the public, and we're distributing hundreds of thousands of those. We have 2 million of them that are being produced right now. We're talking about adding that to the ad campaign, maybe getting jazz players and some Utah celebrities involved with helping to make mask wearing cool. I don't think politicians doing it is going to make anybody excited about doing it, but hopefully if we can get some others to spread that news, because that really is a powerful way. And what's going to get the public, this is the bottom line, guys. It doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter how much we advertise. It doesn't matter what we tell people. If we can get the numbers going down, while opening up because we're being safe and we're washing our hands and we're wearing masks, that's going to give people confidence to go out. And that's what we need right now, is that type of confidence. So we're going to keep doing everything we can, but really the virus is going to determine how confident people are to get out there. So let's keep. Thanks to all of you. We've had mayors who have done Facebook posts and other social media around the importance of wearing masks, and it's been fun to see. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. And you're right about politicians wearing masks, maybe not having the cool factor, but I do think it would be really powerful to have somebody like Rudy Gobert, who single-handedly shut down the NBA. I mean, that's a historic performance by the Defensive Player of the Year, to have him wear masks and talk about the importance of it. And I think there'd be a lot of value there if that was something that could happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think that will cut through a lot more than anything else that we can do or say.
Perfect. Next question is for both you and the commissioner. We talked about it briefly before, but about high-risk individuals, and let's assume best case scenario that in the next little while, portions of the state or the entire state move to yellow. So what additional recommendations do you see that maybe aren't yet in the public's consciousness, that maybe aren't yet in Utah Leads Together? What would you hope to see that would help protect the high-risk population and help them still be able to engage in the community? That's one question we've heard from a lot of local government employers, is that, and frankly I'm one of them, that we have employees who are high risk and have some of the characteristics that we're seeing and can lead to fatal outcomes. What recommendations do you have for them? And then what are some of those underlying risk factors that we're seeing from the data?
Sure, I'm happy to take this, and we'll have Jess jump in too. So let's start with the last one first. When we look at the underlying risk factors, of course, age is one that we've known from China from the beginning, that those over the age of 65 are definitely at a higher risk. But the comorbidities are where we really see the numbers jump as well. Diabetes is a big one here in the state of Utah, I believe, and I apologize, I don't have the numbers right here in front of me, but I think it's approximately 25% of hospitalizations have been people with that are diabetic. Certainly, smokers have seen we've seen a large percentage, a much higher percentage, a disproportionate percentage of those in hospitals are smokers. The cardiovascular disease is another big one, and of course, anyone with an immunocompromised situation will find themselves more susceptible to hospitalization and potential death with this disease. So those are just off the top of my head. Those are the big ones that people are worried about, and certainly we're concerned about that as well. And of course, there's the reverse of that too, right? That people who work very closely with people in those populations, we've seen our long-term care facilities that have been the biggest. From a mortality rate, the biggest issue, not just here, but across the country, as people are very vulnerable. Almost by definition, of course, they're elderly or have some sort of underlying health condition, but also our Latino community and our Native American communities that have been disproportionately hard hit when it comes to hospitalizations. I think I saw somewhere that the Latino community close to 40% of hospitalizations have been from the Latino community, and yet they make up about 15% of the population. So you can see some of the disparities there, and so you're exactly right. Part of our ability, we talk about just the spread of the virus, but part of our ability to open things back up means that we have to do more to protect those that are vulnerable. Of course, mask wearing is one of those things, but there is a whole bunch more that we're working to do. And in fact, as we move to version 3.0 of the Utah Leads Together plan as the experts, and I know you're both involved with that, that we're hoping will come out next week. And we'll actually have guidance to strengthen resources and those high-risk categories that I talked about for those individuals. We also have subcommittees dedicated to this group, the high-risk and vulnerable categories, like those in home without support systems. So a couple of the things that will be coming out, we have a new hotline that if you live at home and need extra help to follow the guidelines, if you need meals, delivery of groceries and medicine, transportation to and from appointments, or other challenges that prevent people from staying safely at home, that new hotline, and I can give that to you. We can send it out. Maybe Kirsten can put it in the comments for people, but it's 877-424-4640. That's just Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Again, 877-424-4640. The Labor Commission is also developing guidelines for protecting high-risk individuals in the workplace. And the Utah Department of Health has developed guidelines for people in long-term and assisted living facilities. And by the way, we're you may have seen today, we're starting testing of all employees working in long-term care facilities. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on right now. All of this information, as well as the definition of who is considered a high-risk individual, you can go to coronavirus.utah.gov. And there's a section there for protecting high-risk individuals. And so hopefully that's helpful. Commissioner Anderson, other things that I've missed or that you could add to that?
Yeah, very good. That's why Lieutenant Governor's in charge. His memories are very good on those numbers and pulling those off the top of his head. A couple of things that we know about these at-risk people is as we loosen the restrictions going from one color code to the next level of risk, we know from our response level, we've got to raise the standard of care and or protection levels around those vulnerable populations or otherwise at-risk people. And so one of those ways that we're doing that right now, I can tell you, is we've actually enacted the National Guard this week. And in fact, we'll have 152 of them on state active duty orders starting today. Actually, they were over getting trained, and what we're going to do is we're putting them in our long-term care facilities. They will be one, given a proper assessment of what the long-term care facility looks like, what it is, with the needs are centered around personal protection and equipment, making sure that proper testing is being completed. So we've also put an ambitious goal out there over the next 2 weeks to test all, not just the workers, but also every patient in all of our long-term care facilities to give a good, solid ground-based level of where we're at with that population. And so we're putting an emphasis on that. And I say that because we know as we continue to move through this, we continually see little hotspots, whether that's in a community via the zip code or otherwise a workplace. And right now we're seeing our biggest increases in workplace hotspots. And next to that is our long-term care facilities, congregate settings. And so what we're doing is we're taking what's called a strike team, or otherwise people who make up doctors, nurses, otherwise people who can go in and attack these hotspots areas. We can bring testing, we can bring a push of PPE. We can make sure that they've got the right amount of effort going into these hotspots so that we can surround it, we can contain it, we can surgically remove it, literally without allowing the spread or anything else to continue to go forward. And that's what we have to do upon these responses. And so we're working very close with the local health departments in order to pull that off and be able to make sure those are given the proper attention. And so it's so critical. And that's why we just now, one of the last states, there's 2 states that haven't enacted their National Guard. We're one of the last 2 to enact the National Guard and bring them on. And this is a good reason why we feel like it's a good opportunity to do that, is to focus on this hotspot effort and our vulnerable groups or otherwise our at-risk people, and be able to protect them the best we can. And so that's where we're putting a lot of our attention right now. We're going to focus on that. We're going to and see how that comes out as we continue to see a few hotspots here and there.
Terrific. Thank you both. And before Brandy asks the final question, just a reminder that Brandy and I will stay on the call for a few more minutes to give a quick update on the different federal actions, both the CARES Act and the fourth stimulus first bill that came out about 4.5 hours ago. So with that, Brandy, your final question for Commissioner Anderson and Lieutenant Governor.
All right, thank you. So we're aware that the state of Utah is currently beta testing the Healthy Together app. Can you explain how the app is being used to flatten the curve, and also talk a little bit about privacy measures that are in place for individuals and businesses that use the app?
Sure. So thank you, Brandy. For those of you that aren't familiar, I know we have talked about the app a little bit on this. The primary purpose of the Healthy Together app is to assist the state and local health departments with contact tracing. So what's really cool about this app, and it is in beta testing right now, and in fact, what was really great about this is we reached out even before we launched it to the public, to the data privacy groups in the state, to have them review everything about this app. And we adopted the strongest privacy standards from across the world. So we're actually using the European Union standard for data privacy, which is much stronger than the standards that we have here in the United States. Right now, probably 95% of the apps on your phone are tracking everything you do and where you go, and it's actually a little scary. This app that is actually used for tracking doesn't do that without your express permission, and so we wanted to make it very easy for people to use, and again, let them know that they could trust this the data on this app to be kept private. So here's the way it works. So what happens is, assuming you allow the app, or you tell the app that you want to be able to use it for contact tracing, the app, it can also be used to help you go through symptoms that you may have and to tell you where to go to get tested. It encourages and reminds people to report any symptoms that they may be experiencing. And then based on those symptoms, it determines if you need to be tested. And then once you get tested, if you test positive, it gives you an option on the app to tell the app, yes, you've tested positive, and that yes, you can use the tracing features on that app to help you, as well as the person that you're working directly with your local Department of Health, to determine where you've been and who you've been in contact with. And so at that point, then the data can then be shared. Again, it's kept on your phone until that point. It's not shared until you tell it to be able to be shared. And then it really helps you to be able to go back over the past 7 days and see exactly where you've been and who you've been in contact with. Now, the even better thing about this is if more people have this on their phone and they've been in direct contact with you, then that will be remembered, and it will ping the phone of the person that you were in contact with, and it will say, hey, you had direct contact with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19, and you should go and get tested. And so it's a really great option to help us, again, fight this virus, go on the offensive with this virus. But here's the best part. The data is automatically destroyed after 30 days on a rolling basis. So every 30 days, the data is destroyed, and you can destroy the data at any time. If you just decide, hey, I don't want to use this anymore, there's a button on there that allows you to delete all data and remove all permissions. And so it's something that we're trying out. We've got tens of thousands of Utahns that are using it right now in this beta test. So far, it seems to be working very well. And so as we feel more comfortable with it, and as the citizens who are beta testing it, by the way, anybody can beta test it. Any business, any person can do that. You can just go right now on Google, or on your Android device or on your Apple device, and download the Healthy Together app and start playing with it, using it, giving us feedback. Tell us what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and we're very optimistic. It's something that other countries have been able to use. Again, it's not mandated. Nobody has to download it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But it is a great way to help fight this virus and help us get ahead of this. So hopefully that's helpful.
Very helpful. Thank you. Commissioner Anderson, anything to contribute to that?
Nope, that's one that Lieutenant Governor covered very well, and we're excited to have it all up and running.
Well, thank you both for your time.
Thank you, and thanks to Commissioner Anderson. He's an incredible leader. We're lucky to have him overseeing public safety. I want to thank the local leaders. Again, just a reminder that working with the local health departments, send your recommendations up to the state health department, and we're excited to get even more of the state open as we move to yellow. So thank you.
I would agree, and thank you. I appreciate that, Lieutenant Governor, and thank you for having us on today and taking the time. If you ever need any questions, PPE or otherwise, pushed out to your county, certainly do not hesitate. Reach out to us, send it up. Have your emergency managers, county emergency managers, or otherwise your health department reach out to us, and we're happy to fulfill any requests or help where we can. So thank you very much.
Terrific. Well, thank you both very much for joining us on the town hall. Brandy and I are going to stick around for a few minutes just to do a quick federal update and while we have our members. But Lieutenant Governor, Commissioner Anderson, thank you both very much. We'll just take a few minutes because we were going to take about 15 minutes to give you a quick federal update. As we mentioned at the beginning of the call, the Democratic leadership, Speaker Pelosi, released what we'll call the fourth stimulus package, which would be $3 trillion of additional COVID-19 related relief. That $3 trillion package is more than the CARES Act. The CARES Act to date is the largest federal stimulus package on record. That package was $2.2 trillion. This act, which is called the HEROES Act, would be $3 trillion. And as of now, the House is planning to vote as early as Friday on the bill. The Senate has not yet indicated if and when they will take up the bill. Again, it's a $3 trillion bill with 1,800 pages of text. The biggest piece for state and local governments is that there is a provision in there that would create a fund for state and local governments. $500 billion for states, $375 billion to local governments, to cities, towns, villages, and counties around the state. Different types of population or different types of formulas based on population or other factors. But at the end of the day, every jurisdiction would be entitled to receive a portion of that $375 billion. Brandy, I know you've been heavily involved in NACO. I've been heavily involved at the National League of Cities. What are the initial thoughts that you've heard from NACO about the HEROES Act?
So just one point of clarification, and I, like you, have received summaries, and even the 90-page summary I have not yet had a chance to look at. But near as I can tell from the summary, it does look like this one differs in that there is dedicated funding for counties and cities separately. So where we've currently been in conversations about local government portion and how to make sure that that is shared amongst the different local jurisdictions, I believe that this package actually designates $187.5 billion for counties and $187.5 billion for cities. Have you seen that as well, Cam?
Yep, that's correct. So the $375 billion for locals would be split 50% to counties, 50% to cities and towns. And there'd be more flexibility in how that money could be spent. So right now, under the CARES Act, that money can only be spent for necessary expenditures. And the Treasury Department admittedly has made some changes over the last few weeks around the definition of necessary expenditures. but there is still that line in the sand that the money can only be spent on necessary expenditures that were unbudgeted and related to COVID. The HEROES Act contemplates providing revenue that would help cities, towns, and counties meet expenses and invest in critical infrastructure. So that is another huge difference between the fourth stimulus and the third stimulus. Brandy, I also have not yet had a chance to read the 90-page summary that came out just before this call, but we'll be reviewing that and getting information out to the members.
Yes.
The local, state and local government components of the HEROES Act is only 11% of the overall bill. So the bill also has money in there for rent reimbursement or rent assistance. It has a direct payment similar to the CARES Act that are $6,000 per individual, and then they go up from there as a variety of other tax relief programs. So it's a very comprehensive bill. The League Board of Directors gave us our instructions a couple of weeks ago around the fourth stimulus, really focusing on a couple of key principles. Those principles being that funding should have some flexibility above and beyond what the CARES Act has done, and that there should be a direct allocation rather than what the CARES Act did, which would send money to states and to cities and counties above 500,000. So we're using those principles as we go through this bill. Timing-wise, if the House were to vote on it and potentially pass it on Friday, the House and Senate are both in session next week, and then they will be recessing during the week of Memorial Day. So stay tuned. We'll have a lot more information in upcoming emails, but we knew that the bill would be coming out at some point today, and that's why we wanted to give you a high-level overview. Brandy, anything else you want to add on the HEROES Act?
Nope, just that, like you mentioned, we'll be getting this summary out to our members this evening, and then just encourage you, if you have a little bit of time, to take a look at it and then reach out to our congressional delegation with any thoughts that you have.
Yep, and really that's the main takeaway here, is that whether you are Garden City or San Juan County or anybody in between, it's important for you to contact the delegation and articulate what COVID has meant for your ability to provide services, and what the revenue impacts are on your community, and how that is doing the opposite of stimulating the economy. It's actually hurting the economy. And so if we can keep projects going, whether those are transportation projects or other types of infrastructure projects going, that helps private sector and helps stimulate the economy. So watch for those updates. The last thing that we wanted to give an update on is just about the CARES Act. We have been working jointly between the League and the Association of Counties around the allocation of those funds to ensure that folks can meet the needs that you have in your communities now around those necessary expenditures. And the League and UAC have been working with legislative leadership to talk through what that allocation formula and process will look like. So stay tuned on that front as well. A lot of moving pieces on that one. The Executive Appropriations Committee is scheduled to talk about it tomorrow morning, and we'll have more information after they have their hearing later this week. Brandy, anything else you want to add on the CARES Act?
Yep, final comment. I just want to mention that we've heard from our members, primarily all that we've heard from is about the collaborative effort between the counties and the cities. And so I just want to express my appreciation to the League for the dialogue that we've had over the past couple of weeks, and the ability to work together for the benefit of local governments in general. So thank you to you, and thank you to your members and the collaborative approach with the counties.
Well, likewise, it has not been an easy process as we're trying to figure out how to help our respective members. The good news is we're all on the same team, which is trying to provide relief for local government. So thank you for your collaborative approach as well. A couple of quick thoughts from the chat. There was a question about the Open and Public Meetings Act. The governor's executive order around the Open and Public Meetings Act actually goes through June 30th. So as long as the state is in a statewide state of emergency, that executive order is in place. So the question becomes what happens come July 1 if we're still in orange, but at least through June 30th, those requirements in the Open and Public Meetings Act around anchor locations are waived. Gary from South Jordan asked about the sales tax numbers. We too are anticipating the sales tax data and gas tax data to come from the tax commission yesterday. We did see an article in KSL just before this call started that talked about the aggregate sales tax and gas tax numbers from March. So the data is out there. KSL has it. So, we'll be following up the tax commission to see exactly where it is, because we thought it was going to be posted yesterday as well. Other than that, there was a lot of other stuff in the chat box, but I believe most of those issues came up in some form or fashion during the call. So that, Brandy, anything else?
That'll do. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good evening.